Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mastering the Shadows. I am your host, Mystic Lee, and here is my guest, Damein, today to help me discuss sigil magic and what it is, and any questions you guys might have on it. So, before we get started, as you guys always know, I want to start off with just clearing the space because this is a little bit more intense of a video than what we normally do. So, I want to make sure all that energy is, set right. So, hey, Thomas, welcome. Hey, Evelyn. Hey, Alethea. Hey, Cheryl. Welcome. Hey, Kaz. I'm glad that you guys are both here. Evelyn's like, finally, right? Yeah, we were a few minutes late, right? All right. Okay. All right, guys. So I'm just going to clear the space. Let's go ahead and take that big, deep breath in, breathing in through our nose and out through our mouth. Breathing in and breathing out, allowing for new, vibrant energy to come in. And releasing all energy that does not match our self-truth. Breathing in and breathing out as you allow for any tension in your head to drop down. Allowing any tension in your shoulders to drop and relax. Allowing that energy to run through your arms and through your hands. As you continue to breathe, releasing all the energy out of your heart chakra as you breathe out. Breathing in and out as that energy drops down into your stomach as any knots in there begin to unwind. Unwinding down your hips, unwinding down your thighs and down through your knees and through your shins. As you keep breathing, allowing that energy to run down your ankles, through the heels of your feet and out your toes. As it flows down into Mother Earth, you just let any of that energy you've picked up, just let go. All right, so now that we've kind of let go, we're kind of in that good vibration, right? We want to make sure that we're clear. So any messages that are coming through, we've cleared out all that energy that we've picked up from others. So it's a little easier for us to pick up on you and get any readings. So, all right. So Damein, so the first thing I'm going to ask is what is a sigil and what is sigil magic?
Well, that's a good question. I just want to stay, just take a quick moment. Mind you, thank you for giving me the opportunity for your article. I hope that gets up and running for you. I'm glad you liked it, and I want to thank your audience for coming out and supporting both you and I. So I want to start there. But that is a very good question, and like most questions with magic, manifestation, or let's just say metaphysics today, if you guys are okay with that. It's a very deep question that I can't give you a very concise, in depth answer on. So I'm going to give you a gist, and I want to invite everyone. You can check out my channel, The Chaos Vibration. I have practical videos earlier on in the channel. They're a little rough around the edges, but I do have some practical stuff there too if people want to check that out, different ways to look at it, because I come to magic from a different perspective than a lot of magicians. But with that being said, I would say, in simplest form, the act of a sigil, before we talk about different ways you can get there and stuff, is taking an intention. Generally, you'll write one out, okay? And you will encapsulate it into a symbol and find a way to direct magical energy into it. At a more fundamental level, what we're doing is we are working from the vantage point that the subconscious mind thinks in metaphor. This can be imagery ideas, and even if you look at sympathetic magic or ideas from the New Age or most magic, I would say there's this idea. I don't want to get into what magic is or isn't, but there's this idea that we are communicating to the subconscious mind through metaphorical symbols. I'm not saying it's all a psychodrama or a placebo effect, but that is a good way to look at it. So I think the analogy I used that I found to be more helpful, more practical, was to understand the mentality or psychology of sigil magic is this. Let's say you have a pet dog, okay, that you need to bring to the vet. If we say the word vet, what happens? The dog runs away, it runs into the woods, it gets freaks out. Let's look at the dog as the conscious mind when we're trying to manifest something or send an idea to the subconscious. We use language, conceptual thoughts, our conscious mind, the dog, right? What does it do? It freaks out, it runs away, right? And then we never get to our destination, in this case, the goal. The whole purpose of sigil magic is finding a new way to bypass that bypass the conscious mind, or in this case, have a grown up to grown up conversation with just the unconscious mind. So when you do a sigil, or the concept of sigil magic is something like saying we have to bring scout to the vet. Or if you're a mother, right?
Yes.
Okay, if you bought a toy for a child that you didn't want them to know about, you might spell out the word birthday or TOY.
Right.
So they don't hear and the work can still happen without all the drama and the nonsense, because either the dog runs into the woods, that's your manifestation, your whatever, running off into the woods. We don't want that. Or the kid would be like, Mommy, where is it? Mommy, where is it? Mommy, where is it? We know
Right.
that's not good for manifestation either. So the idea is essentially to take a statement you might write out. It is my will to get a relationship, cross out your vowels. Okay. This is on my channel, by the way, and then reduce everything to a string of consonants. Side note, this is one way to make a sigil, the quote unquote vanilla way. You're going to take all those consonants, mash them together in a weird looking symbol that can look like nothing. I'll give you an example. I don't remember what this means, okay? This was a string of letters I mashed together. Then I just doodled with them until I felt satisfied. Now, when you're done with that, I like to wait a little while and forget about what the sigil is for. Start with small goals right now. Maybe we'll talk about this if there's time, or resources at the end, where you guys can learn more about this. But we want to forget what this thing means and then find a way to launch it straight into the unconscious mind. Now, I came into sigil magic from a practice known as chaos magic. No, chaos magic is not a pursuit of causing destruction and chaos in the world. It deals with the sheer creativity of all things for now. It's very DIY, very authentic. It's dealing with your own personal chaos. But back to the point, getting it into the unconscious mind, the part that drives manifestation, one of the few things it seems all the metaphysical practices seem to agree on, is you need to find a way to knock the conscious mind out. Now, the vanilla approach, some people may like this, some people may not, is to get into the orgasmic state. And as that moment's happening, we all know the moment we're adults, right? We would either
Mhm.
want to gaze at the sigil or hold the image in our mind's eye throughout the orgasmic state. That is one way. It gets interesting reviews from different people. I think that comes down to a matter of personal preference. Other things you can do are make up a mantra, stare at the sigil, and just chant at it until you completely zone out and hit what the chaos magician may call the Gnostic state. A good guy to read is a guy named Andrea Vitmus. He wrote Hands on Chaos Magic with a lot of different approaches. He will call this the trance state. When we meditate, we hit that trance state,
Yeah.
right? It's the same thing. We want to keep our focus directly on it, like a candle flame. Those are other ways. Now, the other thing you can do is use pain. For your article, whenever it comes out, I think
Yep.
what I wrote was before we do death posture and weird, potentially dangerous occult stuff, because we've evolved from the point of holding scalding rocks in our hands for dumb reasons, right?
Right.
Um, if you do planks, right, and
Mhm.
you hold the plank position or a wall sit, staring at that sigil until that same point of muscle failure. When you're gasping, you are sweating, you are clenching. The whole idea here is through orgasm or this pain example, we're overloading the conscious mind with so much sensory input, it just gives up and cannot resist it. And by gazing at the sigil there, that is what allows the subconscious to grab hold. The way I look at it is we're kind of just opening up the channels nicely for a
Yeah.
clear communication.
And that makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of times I've worked out with cardio and weightlifting, specifically with cardio, pushing myself to the point I feel like I'm like dying and holding onto the machine. And I'll get all this like new information in my head, like spiritual information, especially if like you've had a bad day and just
Right.
there's so much that can and I didn't realize that there's this whole other side right until you sent me your article. For those of you who are tuning into the Mystical Alternative, the magazine, Damein wrote an amazing article really talking more in depth about sigils and connecting it with this workouts that he's talking about, which is amazing. I just to know that that's a whole nother way that you can use that pain, right? Pain being part of our like our yin energy, right, guys? Like through our chakras, our yin and yang, right? Yin is more of that pain, and that's a great way that we can kind of balance, right? Using pain for our benefit, right? As we work out, we're choosing to put ourselves in pain and just being able to transition that energy into something more even more productive, right?
That can be one way to definitely look at it. The way I look at it is whether we call this trance, gnosis, a runner's high, whatever, all of these things kind of gear towards a flow, a state change, which is another problematic word now. Tony Robbins will use this word, and I don't want to open this can of worms because we're gonna get into the philosophical discussion of what is magic, who are magicians. Super fun discussion, but as you probably know, it's interesting. It never really goes anywhere helpful, right?
Yeah, that we could be talking about
But
that in circles for like hours.
I mean, you can use pain. You can look at it as though you're giving it that energy. That is one way a lot of people look at it. I just like to look at it as we're in flow. You get a runner's high. Yeah, you get those ideas.
Hmm.
Some people like to hold the sigil in their mind before they fall asleep. The same concept with the binaural beats and visualizations that can work. That goes back to what Napoleon Hill spoke about. Mitch Horowitz, if guys are familiar with that, he wrote a good book, The Miracle Club, which, if you have New Age audiences, I would definitely look at some of his work,
Yeah.
just because he speaks about new thought in a more mature way. But all these ideas are we're recognizing how to get into or when we are in those trance states, those alpha states, those theta states, call them what you will, and at that point, just kind of dropping it in. You can almost look at it as you're planting a seed when the soil is fertile. You
Talking
want to,
about fertile, Danielle says, so I think I like the orgasmic way.
okay, okay.
I guess because I was talking about too much pain with working out. She's like, I like that orgasmic way of planting those seeds.
I personally, I can like the orgasmic way. Ask her if she'd like a tip.
I'm sorry, ask her what? Oh, do you
Would you?
see her on the comments on the
Yeah.
side?
Would you
Okay.
like a? Would you like me to elaborate a little bit on that, Danielle? Working with the orgasmic state, or I know that's private business, but it's a controversial topic. So
Hey, Jennifer,
okay,
welcome.
okay.
Danielle's like, heck yeah.
Okay. Well, first off, before we get there, I just want to, or no, actually, I'll get there. Then I'd like to give a point. But a lot of people are down on the orgasmic state, and I can see why. Let's get the negative out of the way. Okay. Personally, there's a couple caveats here. It can work for the obvious reasons. Okay. Um, However, this doesn't really help you grow, focus, and the other magical skills per se. So that is the caveat. The other one, Andrea Vitmus again will argue, he brought up a great point, is that this may not feel very good from a psychological perspective after a while because You could do it with a partner, or you could do it on your own, whatever. Sooner or later, you're going to come to the realization that you're, in a sense, getting off to a squiggly, which is a weird thing to work through. Okay. But here's how I like to do it. I'll make these, right? And I find it's best to maybe wait till that moment naturally ensnares, right? And
Okay.
then when that moment happens, then hold the sigil. When you're being intimate with somebody else or whatever, and I think that intimacy for women and men, used responsibly, is something that needs to be spoken about at a different
Hmm.
point in time in this community. Um, I know sexuality is a big thing for women, and for men, there's all this
It's
run around.
unspoken about. I feel like it's not spoken about more in the community. We have spoken a lot about like female energy and sexuality and healing, but yeah, I'd like to hear definitely a lot more about that from a man's perspective.
For now, all I want to say is I don't want to make this a hedonistic prep rally. This is not, we're adults. This is not fap your way to success stuff. But the way I look at it is I tried the celibacy and stuff, and then I realized, like, if you're just running around with blue balls and you're all dysfunctional,
Yeah.
that's probably not good. That's not a good way to live.
Hmm.
Um, we could go back and say, well, the Protestants did it. Yeah, it probably made them aggressive and helped them kill things and rape things too. So,
Yeah.
but that's its own matter. The way I like to look at it is when that naturally happens, especially if it's a small reward, like I wanted a new tarot deck, right? You're
Hmm.
already enjoying something, so it's kind of added bonus. And this
Right.
kind of also brings in a point, which is you are enjoying yourself, which is the state we want. People will call this the quote unquote allowance state, right?
Uh-huh.
You're enjoying yourself, so the focus should not be on activating the sigil. It should
Right.
be in a secondary thing. And I think that's what makes most magic really work. When you're working with what you like, where the focus is on the passion, the experience, therefore we are present to the moment, right? That is when effortless manifestation occurs. For me, the idea of opening circles and doing weird shit to get into that state, I didn't like that feeling. So, but that is only on one way. The other thing I want to just make mention here for people that are into maybe neuroscience or psych model magic, okay, is what's going on in the brain when you are doing it either the orgasmic way or the workout way. Your brain's probably flooding with dopamine. I'm not a neuroscientist, but I assume dopamine, neuroepinephrine, serotonin, all the feel good chemicals,
Hmm.
right? You're building, in my eyes, a neurochemical association too. We could go through
Yeah.
history. We could say, look what happens to drug addicts, right? They build a
Right. Oh,
dopamine association.
Evelyn is asking, sigils don't necessarily need to be squiggly.
No, they do not. Essentially, a sigil is something that just encapsulates your desire. And
Hmm.
as we know, different magician, different sources are going to say different things. You had your tarot deck, right? You asked me, are those sigils? I would say
Yeah.
yes, because they are symbolic of an idea, an intention, a will. I wouldn't
We were talking
say
about this deck, which we'll pull a few cards for you guys here in a minute, because that's what I was going to ask here when you finish up about the cards next.
um, but no, they don't need to be a squiggly. That is just the traditional way. You don't have to be an artist, and they evolve. My first sigils were hideous looking, and then some are more, some are less. Um, a sigil could be an audio sigil. You could make a mantra. I do have videos on that. I'll put them in the comments after. Cross out your letters. Just make a gibberish statement. Um, and just repeat the mantra to yourself when you're meditating. A lot of knowing what's going to work is doing it, obviously, and getting familiar with your own internal triggers. You may
Hmm.
not feel blissed out. A good sign can often be the sigil does not feel important anymore when you're done with it. That's probably a sign that it's just a piece of paper now. And a lot of people freak out because they think, oh, I don't care about my manifestation, but that's letting go, right? Your
Right,
body can
letting go
naturally
so it can
forget.
go into the flow.
Um, it can be an idea. I'm not sure what we mean there, with all due respect.
let me just back up for a second. What were you saying right before? Because I heard what you're saying, and then it just, I think the thing dinged and it pushed me off.
Oh, it caught mine too.
I'm just gonna put
But
that to the side. I was like sharing it to a few more
oh,
places.
it could be a mantra, right?
Right,
It could be a mantra, or but a lot of this is just recognizing your internal triggers
right.
of what could quote unquote drive manifestation, or just the fact it's not important anymore. There's another book,
Oh, that's what I
condensed.
meant by just letting it go, right? Like letting the magic and the sigil just go, right? Like letting it flow, as you said, you're letting the piece of paper go.
Right, right. Now, once again, when you get the article up, this will be put out with a little bit more clear cut. Some caveats people have in the beginning is you want to start with small things, okay? And you want to
Mm-hmm.
be able to forget. I recommend if people want to try this, make 5 or 10. Okay, so just small things, a tarot deck, a new guided meditation on YouTube if that's your jam, a piece of content, maybe something that will help you explain sigils. Hopefully, you'll check out my channel too.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
and
with talking about with explaining sigils, just to kind of, I guess, move along a little bit more, because it seems like we have some other questions. Going to the deck, right? Because I'd asked earlier, and I'm going to pull a card here in a minute for someone. So about this, right? I was talking about this oracle deck, right, with all these symbols on here, and are these sigils?
um, I would say yes. Can I tell you what they do?
Oh,
No. And there's different kinds of sigils for different things. We're talking about the very basic traditional sigil. But I would say those are sigils, yes.
so would you say like a symbol for water? This would be a sigil, but one that's more well known, right? So if we're trying to pull water in, or would you say this could be a component to someone as they're creating their own sigil?
It That's a good question. I would argue at some point those started as sigils. Okay,
Okay,
because they are somehow an association, a manifestation, right? A reflection
right.
of the idea, the
Like the
energy,
philosopher's stone.
whatever. Right. That's a symbol of the is that the Gabalion? I could be wrong, but the Philosopher's Stone, there's an association there,
Yeah.
right? Magic is all association and correspondences. So I would argue yes. I can't tell you what the meanings are, and
Yeah, the
yours
abracadabra.
you can make sigils that way too, yep. Um your sigils, or sorry, your sigils may look like those. When you make the sigil, it doesn't have to look like anything specific. I think the analogy I gave that I liked is it's just gonna feel right, or that's good enough in the beginning. You're gonna get that slight little eureka moment when it's like, oh, okay, I guess the sigil's done. You can remake
So
them, delete them, or remake them until you feel satisfied.
so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna pull a card, one of these for Jennifer, Saren's mom, Jennifer. I'm gonna pull a card for you, and then we're gonna kind of talk about how can we use it towards making a sigil, right? Just as we're giving a sample, right, and talking a bit about its difference versus can it be converted to a sigil. And then Jennifer, if you have any questions as we're doing this, is kind of we're exploring this. Don't forget to put those in the comments. All right. So here's the one that I'm pulling for you, and this is for prosperity. And it says a prosperous business with riches and success. So would you say that this symbol right here is a sigil, or can be used to create her own sigil? And what would your thoughts be for that?
It's a lot of good questions. Let me try and break this down. This is my first live, by the way, so my mind's going in
Well,
a lot of different
you're doing
directions. But
fantastic. I
well,
honestly,
thank you.
if you didn't tell me that ahead of time, I would not have guessed that, because you just flow very well.
Well, thank you. And it wasn't that way on my last live over the weekend. It was a rough weekend for all of us. But thank you. Maybe your sound bowl there helped. But the first thing I'd ask myself is, how does that statement make you feel? And I don't want to go on a tangent. I think where people go wrong, if you have new age audience, is they just pick affirmations out of the book, right? They don't make their own. They don't ask, Does that statement make you feel, I don't want to say prosperous, does it make you feel powered, good about your goal? From there, you want to basically write no an affirmative statement. You can use that one. What does it say again?
It says a prosperous business with riches and success.
Okay. So let's start here. Does that statement make this person feel prosperous? Does it make them feel empowered or at least excited about that goal for now instead of intimidated?
Let's see. Yeah, Jennifer, does it make you feel intimidated or does that make you feel empowered? Crystal's asking, sigils should be unique to you, shouldn't they? I love watching videos on how to make them. Also, I thought they were always connected in one line, not different symbols side by side, but I could be wrong. And I guess that's because they're referring to in here, right? It's all in the circle, but that these, right, these crosses aren't connected to the centerpiece, I guess is what Crystal is asking.
Do you mind if we just finish this so we just, because
Yeah, so
that's
we'll
a
go
good
back to
question
your
too. Okay.
question, Crystal.
We'll come
So
back, Crystal.
Jennifer says, yeah. And I'm wondering, does that mean, yeah, it makes you feel empowered?
Okay. What you could do from a basic sigil approach, keep in mind there's many ways, okay, is you could write something like, what's the statement again? I'm trying to read it. I'm sorry. A
It says,
prosperous.
a prosperous business with riches and success.
Okay. So you'd write an affirmative simple statement for now, okay? I have a prosperous business with such and such success. I am a prosperous business leader. I'd give it a couple details. For example, if you don't know, don't force details. But let's say you want to be a tarot reader, right? You want a tarot business. I have a prosperous tarot business. In theory, at least, you could make that your statement. Cross out your vowels, right? Um, Mash all the letters together again. Go through this a few times. Make it simple and activate it. Now, for that one, this is a different thing. Should we keep or discard our sigils? That goal is going to take a lot of time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to discourage this person. I may not make that my first sigil, or at least use that, make that akin to a vision board, hang it up, because that one we want to reinforce ourselves, okay?
So could they then make something similar, as in, let's say they just want to be prosperous in the business world, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that could also mean, instead of owning their own business, working as a business person, right, for another company. And I guess that goes back to being specific about asking, how does that statement, like, how do you make that statement personal to you? And Jennifer, what I would say with the fact that I pulled this card for you, that all these questions and ideas that Damien's presenting, and just, what even this word means, a prosperous business with riches and success, right? Just taking time to meditate on that and to make that personal before you even start working on your sigil. Is that what I'm getting correct?
Yeah, and I just want to say, Crystal, you ask very good questions. A lot of this is very personal. It's easier to do in the moment in conversation. So I hope my answers are helpful. But a lot of this, and I don't want to be the monk who just says statements. I'm not a monk, but a lot of this is knowing thyself. I'm going to use another analogy. The feeling should be almost like, how do you know when, now that we're adults, you go out to a bar or a restaurant, whatever, and someone may be the right person for you? The only way we know is by going through this, and after a while, our intuition, call it what you will just kind of say, yeah, that just feels right. Later on, we want to figure out why, but for now, if that feels right, I'd say try it out, see what happens, you know? Um, you can always make, from there, I would make more specific sigils as inspired. So continuing with this tarot example, right? If we want to be
Mm-hmm.
run a prosperous tarot business, we may need to make smaller sigils that align to that goal, such as
Okay.
a tarot customer, maybe a content idea. If we need to start a channel, how did I find the inspiration to start a channel? Okay. And so on and so forth. What I personally would do is, I don't want to confuse you. I'd start with that sigil and just see what comes up. We'll start there too. So
Okay, that
okay.
sounds great. Pramela is also asking for a card, so we'll just kind of pick one for her as well, and then just kind of see, what kind of comes from that. All right, Pramela. Here is your card here, and it says Tree of Life. True wisdom and making good choices in life. So one thing that I see here, right, with the Tree of Life, we've got, I always forget what the geometric name is for this shape, but the 6-pointed star, which is also the star that is within our heart chakra, which again is where we stem from both, right, both above and below. And there's a lot of historical symbolism in how the trees, the branches represent as above, and the roots can represent as below. And that's, its own sacred kind of wisdom within itself. So how, Damein, how would you use a symbol like this? Would you incorporate this in some type of sigil work that you would use? Or what kind of advice could you give on having to use this type of imagery or message for making a sigil?
Sorry. Just let that question settle in. I want to make sure I
Yeah, I'm
heard you
sorry. I was
right.
like getting all this information with the card, just with the whole above and below. And I don't know, if I were to get this card, I would somehow want to doodle on top of that image in a way. And can you do that with a sigil? Like if I'm pulling a card like this for someone and we're talking about making sigils, could they take this image right here? Like let's say they're wanting to create wisdom within, balance within, right? And from my videos, I teach a lot of balance comes within the heart chakra. The heart chakra is the door between the higher and lower self, which matches the symbol here. And with the wisdom, right? Could you, I guess, what I'm seeing in my mind is maybe then putting certain things coming out of each of the branches, right? Whether they're letters that connect to things that are part of the higher self that you want to invoke or bring into your life, and then maybe putting those letters or other things on the lower branches here to help invoke those lower parts, that
That
lower wisdom. Does that make sense?
that is a very great way and a kind of more advanced mentality for a sigil. I want to break this down to a couple parts. Um, Number one, obviously, magicians are going to tell you different things. Some will say we always want to be authentic and quote unquote emerge from the subconscious mind, which there's a lot of great wisdom, but that gets kind of convoluted very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
May I use another analogy?
Yes, please.
When I was a kid, I wanted to make music, right? I would say if you can't find something that finds your eureka, we have to find that creative flow. You can always use their symbols if it speaks to you and you have an idea as to why. Think of this as like how most bands start. Okay, they basically start remaking their favorite songs
Mm-hmm.
until they find themselves. So if you need to start there, by all means, what you want to figure out though are why those symbols speak to you. If you have a moment, I'd like to grab a book for you really quick.
Yes, please do. Pramela, I hope that this card's resonating with you. Oh, and I just asked that, and immediately in the comments it says, "The Star of David speaks to me."
Okay. If that was the same person, sorry, I'm trying to keep up with this too and
Yes, it's the same
not
person
leave
that I
anyone
pulled the
out.
card for.
I would say then yes, why? You may want to figure out what it is about that symbol. At least for me, this is going to be subjective. I say follow the symbology. So, for example, for me, um, when I see that chaos star, chaos magic, it's for me, that's kind of a synchronicity from the universe. Obviously, these are subjective and relative to the self. That may not be for you, but if this is really speaking to you, I just want to say here, I'm sure your audience is wiser, but these are what I call synchronicities, not, oh, I saw 911 on the ambulance today. It must mean Archangel Michael's here. kind of thing, you know. But more seriously, there's this book here. Let me see if I can do this. It's called Sigil Witchery by
Okay.
Laura Tempest Zakroff. The reason I'm showing you this is I'm kind of getting this sense that your audience is more into, I kind of want to say the word talisman, but not. Your audience seems more into these ideas of sigils that aren't for specific goals, but that reinforce beliefs, states of beings, or you, as you guys may say, vibrations. Am I correct?
Yeah, I would say yeah.
Okay. I would check this book out because she speaks a little bit more on that. There's sections like draw your symbols here, okay? And
Okay.
you may start to notice that certain sigils, symbols, okay, you can put that in the blank, have certain correspondences, certain meanings for you right off the bat. This is maybe a little bit more advanced or in depth. Certain people make statements that sound good. They make their sigil, they make their glyph. It feels right. And then it just, they get the heebie jeebies looking at it. I'm not going to say that's good or bad, but the idea here is that sometimes when we turn it into something, we get a different feeling. Another point here is that essentially what we're doing is we're taking an idea, a wish, a will, or whatever, and we are giving it physical manifestation. Okay.
Hmm.
That was basically the premise behind the vision board where I started with the new age, which I don't know your audience's background. I think a lot of us started there and we figured out it's kind of not that helpful after a while,
Hmm.
but that's its own matter. But I would check that book out because she kind of explores that too. That's a different theory of sigil magic. Some people like to hang them up to reinforce those ideas, which I like.
Yeah.
Some people will argue you need to burn them and destroy them. For me, that is a very contextual thing. I can elaborate on that. I just want to make sure, if you don't mind, we've hit everyone's questions because I know there
Yeah,
was
I
some
was
that
I was
we.
just reading them as they were all coming in because I know Pramela was saying that it speaks to her and that she has 3 tattoos. So it's definitely a symbol that's more personal for her. Um
Okay.
And so
Um.
I guess with this, it's talking about wisdom and making good choices in life. And what I would say with that is, and just talking about with sigils, right? Because sigils are such a huge part with exploring self-truth, right, on a deeper level. And I would say that that's really what this card is pointing towards with that true wisdom and making good life choices is just going further into exploring your self-truth, right? And maybe not necessarily even using this symbol in your sigils, but maybe taking that step to start making your own sigils, right? With all the questions that Damien's presenting, that we start questioning before we start putting them together, because that journey in itself is, it creates its own wisdom.
That it sounds like you're speaking to a seeking journey, an exploration journey here.
Yeah, that's kind
Okay,
of
I just
what
want to
I'm
make sure.
feeling
Okay.
for her with the tree of life, as we were talking about the symbols and just because I know at first I was asking, like, how do you expand off of it, and I felt like she was feeling really connected with that, right, with expanding off the image, right, with
Mhm.
the Star of David. And then the more that we're talking about sigils, right, it goes deeper than that, right? It's really more about, if I'm understanding this correctly, more about what's coming from that self truth as you're asking your questions and putting those things to paper. Does that make sense?
I think so. I'm gonna word it for now. We're connecting to our creativity.
Yeah.
If that works, I just find it's a little bit more accessible. And I hope we're on the same page there. I also just
Yeah.
want to remind people that is kind of the chaos magician's idea of the meaning chaos, which is chaos meaning your un, unadulterated creativity, your own self-expression. A little bit off the beaten path. I just think this needs to be said. A lot of magic, manifestation, spirituality is the gift of manifesting yourself, connecting to yourself, right?
Hmm.
Chances are, if you, I think Giovanni was here. If you still are, thanks for stopping by, brother. But you've had Giovanni on. We've talked Bodhi, right? We're
Hmm.
all kind of into things our own way.
Yeah.
So what I love about chaos magic, people get into it, is you have to find yourself. And I think that's where people go wrong with spirituality is they're being everybody else but themselves. And what I want to say is that when you're not being yourself, it probably doesn't feel very good on the inside. Authenticity's gone out the window. Any notion of true will, living your truth, forget about it. Naturally, when you're yourself, life works better, right?
Mm-hmm.
Also, when things don't go our way, isn't it easier to kind of suck it up when we've been true to ourselves?
Yeah.
Because we're in a world where there are no guarantees. But back to the point, I think sigils, it's I'm gonna guess for this person is a sense of exploration. May I add a piece
Okay.
of advice to this tree of life person?
Yes, please.
Have you looked at the tree of life? I could be dead wrong. As I say in my channel, question me, question everything.
Sorry about that.
It's okay, it happens. I could be dead wrong. I would also ask myself, is the universe maybe asking me to look into the tree of life? Can we use sigils to create those pathways? In theory, anything's possible. So, could you sigilize for a book on the tree of life if your intuition takes you there? A Kabbalah deck, a Tree of Life Oracle deck. I have a really cool one that is called Kabbalah Tree of Life Oracle.
Oh, that looks awesome.
It is by Cherry Gilchrist.
Okay, I'm gonna
This
look
one,
into that.
that one gives you blunt information, though. It's very tough on you in a good way. But those were things that were coming to me. But, I would play in that zone because it sounds like you're inspired. It sounds like we need some more clarity. And I'm not saying that derogatorily. I say let the journey evolve. You will get more clear and figure it out like an artist, like an author. You will find your own style if you keep at it.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to be a law of attraction coach. Now I'm doing this. You may start with sigils and you may find you ended up in a different spot and that's where you needed to be. But generally, connecting to that too does seem that we're kind of ready to level up and get to the next level of this journey. Other thing I like about sigils is when you get the hang of them, you can bang out a lot quick, do them quickly, and leave more time to follow up in one way or another in life.
So what amount of time would you allot from when you make a sigil versus feeling like you can let it go? And then also how much time until you feel that you need to make like a follow-up? Like what is that? Is that just natural occurring for everyone, or is there something time-wise for people to look at?
That is a very good question. Once again, and one of the reasons I love chaos magic, they say nothing is true, everything is permitted. That doesn't mean do whatever you want, but my joke is that I'm serious. I often don't agree with my own self throughout the week, so I'm too busy reconciling that than handle anymore. But in all seriousness, that is once again going to come down to knowing thyself and knowing thy practice. Traditionally, Chaos Magician will say, you need to forget about the sigil, forget what it means, and now keep records and monitor your results. And it's how do you reconcile these things?
Right.
Some people will say, like burning it, keeping it. Sorry, let me just, my thoughts catch up. Some people will say, put it in a record, write down what happens. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You can try that. This is why I say start small too.
Right.
Because we don't want the stress of our biggest dreams getting there.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe one day I'll have answers on how to resolve that when you start. If you have big dreams, you need to get off your mind. But anyway, um, knowing how to forget and how to follow up are a couple different things. The whole idea, just for review, is we want to have zero idea what the sigil is for when we are activating it. This is not helpful for most people, right?
So could you just then, because earlier you're talking about when you get into making sigils, you can make a lot quickly. Is this like you kind of focus on the things that you want, you make your sigil and you have like a box of sigils and then you're waiting for that moment where you're like, all right, I'm going to have some me time, or, oh, I'm going to go to the gym. And then you use that intense
Yes.
moment. You just grab whichever sigils in the box because it doesn't matter which one it is. You're not supposed to know. and then you can just put that energy on it as you're naturally finding yourself in that space to create that energy needed to power the sigil.
Yes, and that's a more new agey way, but that's something I like about the new age is recognizing you're in that state, that vibration, then trying to force it, make a few. One safety tip here where a lot of chaos magician, not the ones who have had me on their channel, the ones I've learned from, but a lot of like general ones who do dumb shit is they'll make a bunch of conflicting sigils. They'll make one for money, one for trip for Disneyland, one for all these conflicting ideas, one for to be a celibate monk, and then jokingly they'll ask for a big bag of cocaine and they wonder why they're not getting anything, or magic isn't
I
working.
see.
And it's try and pick small things that all kind of loosely, sensibly align to the same goal. Once again, if you want to
So
be
I
a
guess this
tarot
kind of goes back to that first sigil that we were talking about with the business one, and doing one for the
exactly.
tarot business would be your big one, and then the little ones would be your first tarot reading customer, your 20th reading customer, and so, doing all those other little details that go under the larger thing that all links together. It would be best to start with a bit like something like that and putting all those in a box since they all link together, and then pulling those out.
I think that's the best, and here's the feeling I'm looking for that works for me. It's kind of like I will go through a few and I'll be like, oh, gee, I wonder what the hell this one does. Like,
Mm-hmm.
literally. The way I like to look at it is imagine if you had a bunch of lottery tickets, scratch off tickets, right? And you knew they all gave you something. Maybe one gave you $1. Maybe one's going to give you $500. Maybe one will give you $20. That's probably better than the regular stated odds, right? So
Right.
I would look at it that way. As far as following up, knowing how to make another one, you kind of have to do one. This is a slippery
Yeah.
slope. We don't want to go into lust for result and fire them all at once. There are ways
Right.
you can do that. You're probably not going to be able to do that through sex, okay? Because we want this to be, I want to say the best. We want to be a pleasurable orgasm. At the
Right.
gym, if you hit 10 different stations, you can try it, but you have to monitor the results and be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Knowing when to follow up and change direction, that's probably a conversation for another day
Yeah.
because that's really dealing more with short-term goal achievement with magic and long-term achievement with magic, which don't always work the same because for long-term goals, like a tarot business, we want to kind of remember our goal, right? So the
Right.
way I look at it is we remember it, or we have a gist of what we need to do. We're just not obsessing about the details anymore. Just akin to
Okay.
saying, I'm going to go out, I want to meet a guy, meet a girl tonight, just enjoy myself, right? Maybe a
Right.
date will happen, maybe we'll be friends, maybe they'll tell me about a Reiki shop. We want to live life from that kind of vantage point where we're
Okay.
open. That is what alignment is for me, but we're not obsessed about the exactness of things.
Mhm.
Do you mind if I just check some of the questions here? Because there were
Yes,
some other good
please
ones.
do. Hey,
Okay.
Erica, welcome. Yeah, I'm sorry guys, I'm ADHD and I'm kind of reading them on the side, but I mean, honestly, Damien, everything that you're telling us about this, I'm just so intrigued by it because a lot of what you're saying with how to use sigils is stuff that I've heard with other philosophies with magic, like I don't know if you've seen the documentary or read the book The Secret, which is one of the
Yeah.
first ones that I kind of got involved with, and how he taught, and he was talking about putting that dollar bill right above his bed at night, and I'm sure there were times he had that time with his wife and he was looking at it,
Well,
because he definitely talks about waking up and seeing it. And when he can't sleep at night, it's right above him and he puts that energy into it. And then there's also that talking about just letting things go, right? It's like, I always heard a phrase of when you try and manifest, it's like you're manifesting and you're blowing it into a balloon and you've got a string tied to it, right? And if you keep thinking about what you put in the balloon, you're never letting it go back to the universe. You just keep pulling on its string. And when you let go of it, it can go back into the universe and bring what you're manifesting back to you. But you can't do that till you let go of the string and let the balloon go. And as you're talking about sigils, it's all these things that I learned, oh gosh, 10, 15 years ago that I had forgotten about. And it just, as you're talking about, it's kind of bringing it all back up.
once again, you bring up points that have so many great observations. One quick one I want to shed light on, then I actually want to go through the comments if that's okay.
Yes, please.
How long do you go for? An hour, by the way?
Yes, we normally go for an hour, but it's okay if we go a little bit over because
Okay,
there's
okay,
not a show scheduled immediately after
okay.
us.
No, I want to give back to your people here too as best I can. So
Yes.
thank you, by the way, again, and thank you guys for showing up. But Crystal, if you're still here, or if you want to put a note in that I did an FAQ at the end, I just want to get back to your question.
Oh, that's right. She had such a great question.
They always need to be connected in one line.
I'm glad
What
you
I
dropped by too, Erica.
what
Erica saying, "Wow, I'm so happy that I dropped in today."
what I want to say to Crystal Llewellyn, by the way, is the sigil doesn't have to look like anything. Okay. Um, what I would once again with the Laura Tempest book is ask why you feel that way and explore some of them. I don't want to go down a long liturgical thing for time's sake, but I would say, why do we feel that they need to be connected? Well, probably because we have convoluted ideas about how we should obtain a goal in our lives. So we could look at it as though by connecting these lines, we're connecting all the convoluted parts. For example, when I do letters, I look at it as though when we're taking out letters and removing parts, it's kind of as though on a macro, or let's just say a magical level within life, object influence, right? If you say, oh, I don't need the whole part of the S, that's symbolic of, oh, I don't need to do this crazy thing over here to achieve my goal. Oh, I want to make this part, make the C bigger in my goal, right? That could be symbolic of this part of the goal will need more focus. We don't need to attribute meaning there. We don't want to shoehorn meaning into things, at least in my eyes. But you will know the more you make, you will recognize patterns. Some people like arrows up and down. That is symbolic of as above, so below for me. But play with them, and it is good, Crystal, to be mindful of those things. They don't need to look like anything, but that is I do really like that you brought that up. I would keep note of that in your personal practice instead of maybe writing what the sigils are for, monitoring your feelings, doing enough, and noticing maybe certain symbols, certain patterns will bring you better results than others. I just write it in a magical records book, which I hope all your audience keeps. And instead of trying to figure it out, you do records every day. Just jot down what happened. Dots will connect. Answers should reveal themselves to you, even if it's the next step. Um, Thank you, Danielle. Thank you, everyone, for coming by and your support. Star of David, did we speak about that?
We did. That was
Okay.
with the Tree of Life sigil.
Evelyn, I have my sigil, and it was so ironically scary. That is another question that could, like I said, that could mean the sigil is a no go. What I would do is, if you do tarot, pull a card. Some magician will say you should always do a divination before a spell. Here's what works for me on that topic. Maybe this will give you some inspiration. If you are 100% on board with something, I don't do divination. I know some people hate on that because I'm still learning the tarot, but for me, part of magic is the act of cultivating deliberation or conviction. You ever have a great idea, you ask too many people, and then you lose faith in it, which is one reason I say we don't talk about the magic. Okay, or you could say we send competing ideas back to the subconscious. I
Mm-hmm.
would explore that. It could mean the sigil's a no. I do a divination, pull an oracle or something. See, you could even hold the sigil in your mind and do a pick a card reading if you want. Or
Maybe I should pull a card real quick for Evelyn and see if something else comes up for her.
if you want to.
Let's see here. We've got Dragonfly, which you bring light to this world.
I've personally got nothing on that one. But
All I'm getting from that is, yeah, just needing to go back and pull that oracle card, right? Shining light on the question at hand.
the other point there that just came up, Evelyn, is your first sigil doesn't have to be the complete one. You can make it and give it several takes till it feels right. The other thing we need to explore here, which is a topic for another day, is a lot of people have a lot of unconscious resistance to the concept of doing magic. I don't know if you started with New Age, Evelyn, but this is a thing I've been have worked through too, and still do, because no one's perfect. A lot of people say they manifest because they feel guilty about the concept of magic, which I'm not saying you have to do anything, but that can be a thing for people. And that is just polarizing with the self. They're being passive aggressive and they wonder why they don't get things. I would maybe make a few other sigils, see how you feel, try something smaller. If it's a big goal, maybe that's just not the time. That's worth keeping in mind. Start with small things. Whenever I make sigils, throw in some really small ones too, like how did I have spaghetti next week? How did I take a shower? Something you will do. This is called robo fishing. It's in a book, Chaos Protocols by Gordon White. The idea is that we're creating the association in our mind that sigils work. When they recognize they work, or think of it like weights, we're starting small, we're leveling up to big goals. Or maybe you'll make a few and you'll come back another day and it will feel right. I hope that helps out, Evelyn. You just said you made one. You didn't know you made one. Hoping, letting it be. Evelyn, I'm gonna once again put some links in the comments after this, or maybe in the following days. If you want to update them on your page, I have a video on how to knowing when to destroy sigils, when to let go. Should we keep them and refire them? Okay. There's that. Putting in an envelope and sending it. I have done that. Okay. With different things, that is symbolic of letting go. The only other point I want to add there is if it's something like how did I become confident? Hang it up on your refrigerator, let it blend into plain sight. Because we want that to feel as plain and mundane as day till we forget the sigil's there. If it's something for a material result, I destroy the sigil because that is symbolic of letting go. In other words, like sigils with tattoos, does this thing need to be a part of who we are? Personally, I'm not a fan of that. If that's your jam, that's your jam. Okay. But personally, I am not a fan of that. But if it's a small thing, and I tell anyone, if it's like, how did I find $5 and you can't let go of it, you can't destroy that sigil, that probably means you're too attached. And that's part of this journey. That's part of this learning curve. So that's just being obvious. I hope that helped out a little bit. And as far as breaking your own rules, if keeping one makes you feel uncomfortable, but you can't bring yourself to part with it, you can put it in a closet. If the feeling really exasperates, it's making you lust more, maybe destroy the sigil. There's always things you can do. Some magicians say you can't re-enchant for it, you can't reactivate it. That's kind of a conversation for another day because of time, but I would say if you're lusting for the thing, maybe not tomorrow, try again. And just like when you eat or you have a craving or whatever, when we feel satisfied, take it as time to move on. If you're not satisfied, it may
Does
be
that mean that's time to do a backup when you're still not satisfied and you're thinking about it? Just make another sigil? Would that be an
uh
example of a backup, or is that just straight up an example of not being able to let it go?
well that's going to come to knowing yourself again, knowing your circumstance. The way I like to look at it practically is certain goals will be harder to let go of. The idea is once again is that we're not thinking about it, or we're not obsessed about the outcome anymore. Okay, so and doesn't have to be everything for not everything has to be done with sigils and chaos magic. There's servitors, pop magic, all kinds of cool things. Um, you can make affirmation talismans with sigils. That's on my channel. But anyway, the point is here is that personally, if it's a bigger goal, maybe it'll need a few. We at least want to feel So we at least don't want to feel like it's running our lives. You know what I mean? Like if we
Right.
like somebody,
You
we don't
don't
want to
need
be
to obsess
obsessing.
over them.
Right, right, right. If you can forget, even better. Okay. Now if it's like you want a new career, you don't want to entirely forget. But maybe at least it'll shift you from obsessing about what kind of job to get to say, well, at least I'll make a resume today.
Right.
And maybe if you're nervous, that doesn't mean it doesn't work. That is still progress. So you have to know your territory, know your goal setting process. I'd like to
Mhm.
see Magic talk a little bit about that in the future more than a million techniques. I think that's what people need a little bit more right now. And the way I look at it is don't fire it every day, but in a week or two, maybe you'll feel a different way.
Mhm.
Try it again, especially if it's a talisman. That's once again its own matter. The New Agers use them more akin to a replacements for vision boards. I do like that idea. You will know by doing them. But the analogy is worst case scenario is if you push the manifestation away or you wreck it, that's still better than sitting there obsessing and taking no action. You know, sometimes things go wrong and they lead us to the right direction. So for me, it's about moving on.
Hey,
Thank you,
Bodie.
Bodhi. And I just want to say, personally, I think we both owe a big thank you to Bodhi.
Yeah, because
He brought
Bodie
me
and
in.
Giovanni are kind of how I met. Well, I haven't
Yeah,
had
yeah.
Bodie on my show yet. I'd love to have Bodie on my show, but yeah, I definitely feel like we're all we're all connected.
But seriously, everyone, thank you, Bodhi. Thank you, Giovanni, if you're still watching, because they are a part of this process. They're very knowledgeable. They're super down to earth guys too. I would like to do a collaboration with all you guys on some different stuff one day. So, just want
That
to
would
thank
be
you and thank you
fun.
for showing up. So, but let's give credit where it's due. That's a big thing for me too. Because not your guys, a lot of people talk collective, and I don't see it in action. It's becoming a pet peeve for me, and it
Yeah.
just needs to be said. So, thank you guys. Thank you for the people that show up. Um, back to the
Evelyn makes a good point here with the sigil, and I've got a great question with that. Is she says the sigil I've made that it was supposed to be a logo for my future business card. So that how would you respond to that, especially with talking about letting go with sigils?
I'm gonna put that in because I have a couple different classifications of sigils too. But I would say that is a sigil. I'm trying to keep certain things private right now for creative reasons, nothing personal. But I would argue that a logo, in a sense, is a sigil. I don't want to go conspiracy theorists. Some people will argue they are. But that's the example of the sigil. We want to have a gist. We want to feel pulled in a direction. We just don't want to be obsessed about the details.
Okay.
I'm going to theorize that a lot of companies' logos are sigils, consciously or unconsciously, in a different sense of that word, meaning not subconscious mind, but they were kind of magician. Everyone wonders about the Starbucks sigil, right? What the hell does that thing have to do with coffee? Maybe they bound spirits to it. You could find Hecate in there or other spirits. Some people see Baphomet. That's its own matter. But that could be a sigil, right?
I think she's
Um,
supposed to be a siren, right? The seas. I don't know. I always figured it was like the mermaid on the boat guiding the coffee to the next place.
I was looking at some stuff for Hecate that she may have appeared as a siren. I don't know.
Okay.
I've
Yeah,
seen
I think I've
the
heard when you get into some of that the right the history kind of can change based on where it's coming from and who you're reading it
right,
from, right?
but the psychology still applies here, Evelyn. I want to highlight is the symbol somehow grabs your attention.
Mhm.
Y- like that Starbucks sigil, whenever you see it, you think Starbucks, whether you love Starbucks, hate Starbucks, right? I've wondered if the Superman S is a sigil. I'd argue the Batman symbol is a sigil. Bands use these things. The idea is when you look at it, not in an obsessive compulsive way, you're somehow thinking about that thing.
Right.
What you do with it after that is up to you. But if it was a sigil for business and now you're thinking that maybe it could be a logo, I'd say you're on that's a sign that you're on the right path. I can't guarantee you won't need to retool later on. In fact, you may have to. That's its own matter. But if it's bringing you a sense of positive inertia, if you're even a couple steps closer, what was better than where we were before that, wasn't it? So
Yeah. Erica saying I have to educate myself about sigils. And again, Damien, if you wouldn't mind after we get off the video, just putting your sending me your link for your YouTube channel again. I know you sent it to me before. That way I can make sure it's in the comments. Because Erica, because Damien, you said you did videos with sigils before, right? And also he wrote an article for the Mystical Alternative. Once I can figure out how to get over my little publishing hump, I think I'm just going to go a different direction. And he's got a fantastic article that he wrote about using the sigils and using them for working out. And catching and Erica catching our video. I know you tuned in a little bit later on. Damien spent a great, what was it, the first 20 minutes of the video really kind of explaining a little bit more detail about the sigil. So you'll have to check that out.
Also, just on the topic, my channel is the Chaos Vibration.
Yes,
First word
I'm going to put that in the
chaos,
comment right here.
second name vibration. Check the playlist tab. I try and keep all the sigils together. Not everything there is sigil magic. Not everything there is chaos magic. For those that are late, I started as New Age and have kind of been working on it and finding ways to even mix and match from New Age. And we're going beyond that. One thing I loved about chaos magic was it saved me from the New Age dogma, which is not helpful.
Is it
But that,
called chaos vibration or the chaos vibration?
I think either one should work in the search engine, but it's technically the chaos vibration.
And do you have a Facebook page too, or just the YouTube?
You can put my Facebook page up. If people have questions, they can PM me.
Okay.
I will do the best I can to get back to you. I'm not going to sell coaching. I had coaching. I took it down for a little bit. I'm trying to figure out some things with Patreon, some other things. But say you were part of the live here, with Mystical Lee. We're on honor system here. I think that's a thing for magician. I'm not going to check. I'm not going to put up shields. I'm just going to say honor system, okay? And I will do my best to give you an concise yet informative answer. But really, at the end, you're going to have to figure it out for yourself. If you want something more, you want someone more time, we can ask. We can see what we can and can't do. No guarantees, because I know time's valuable for people. I also know we're in a financially uncertain time. If it were up to me, I didn't have to do other things. I do this all for free. I'm not trying to sell things. That's the reality of the situation. But if you find me on Facebook, if you just want to put the link there, my name is Damien James. In synopsis, say Mystic Lee sent, or you're on the live once again with Mystic Lee or Mastering the Shadows for the sigil thing, and I'll see if I can at least give you some advice to at least help you take those next couple steps. I think that's fair.
Yeah. I tried to put in the links as well so people can click that link I put into the comments that goes straight to your Facebook page. And I tried to put that information on there so people can find you a little easier.
Yeah. And once more on the Chaos Vibration Praise on playlist, we have different kinds of things. I have the sigil magic stuff grouped together. Some of your questions should be there. I also have the suggested chaos magic reading list, 2 of those. Okay. One is more books, which is more expansive. I actually put out a second one in June if you want to explore chaos magic with just 2 books, because I know this is a financially conscious time. The second one's for people that just want to learn the techniques, get a feel for them, and don't really care about the theory or history that much, at least for right now. We have things like that. Try not to reveal your sigil, by the way, Evelyn. So try and keep it secret to you.
That's what she's saying. But, I can't reveal my sigil yet.
If you don't feel comfortable, don't. They say don't tell in magic. I like to say it's intimate. There's things that I'm keeping into myself right now, not to be a jerk, but for the greater good as well. So I totally relate there, Is there anything else you had?
No, I think we covered quite a lot. Thank you so much, Damien, for joining me. Does anyone else have any last minute questions before we guys let you go? And then I'll see you guys next week at the normal time, 5 to 6 for Mastering the Shadows. And again, check out my book, The Mystical Alternative. I already have fall and winter up. I'm just not sure what's going on with the spring one, and those are available on Amazon. And I think I'm going to actually print it somewhere else. So you guys stay tuned if you're interested in reading that article from Damein. Hopefully I'll have it up within the next week. Fingers crossed, right? Maybe I need to make a sigil for it. Maybe that's what's going on here. I have not done that.
Well, if that just came to you, I'd say it's worth a try. What have you got to lose?
Right? It just seems like a great kind of response to this, right? And it is, because it's about sigils. So maybe that's what I'm being taught in this whole reason why it hasn't manifested yet, is discovering my own powers with sigil creating, right? We never, right? The universe always shows us weird things to push us to teach ourselves, right?
Right, right, right.
So yeah, Erica is saying thanks again. And yeah, you guys, thank you so much. We'll see you guys next week.
Thank you, guys.
All right. So Damein, you stay with me while I say goodbye to everyone else. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and run our outro. So thank you guys so much. I'll see you guys next week.